Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. Hello, everyone. I am here in my office for those of you who may or may not be watching, because in all honesty, I'm recording this whilst not quite sure if I want to actually show this video, because me sitting in my office is actually kind of boring, but perhaps one day we'll do a tour of my esteemed comic book shelf collection and posters and whatnot. But I was thinking I would do a share on the last few weeks of my life, which I know sounds very presumptuous, because why do you actually care about the last few weeks of my life? But we have been posting a lot about the Wah Lum Sifu Test, about the hurricane, about what it entails for everybody to come here into the Wah Lum Temple in Orlando to take this test, and what that really means. And there was a lot of questions and I think curiosity about it, to be honest, because unless you know, right? Unless you're in the inner circle and taking the test, one can't really understand what it entails. So I figured I would do a quick segment to kind of shed a little bit of light. And for you Patreons out there, thank you so much to my patrons. You are the best. Basically, you've been getting a lot of insight from my blog posts and extensive photo and video posts that I've been sharing regarding the weekend that was completely insane, from Hurricane Milton as well as the Sifu Test weekend. So just want to shout out and thank you again for allowing me to have a creative outlet in addition to the podcast, to really kind of share some more behind the scenes stuff, but also for you all supporting me. So thanks so much. And if you're not a patron, you're missing out. You're missing out if you actually care about those things. But in any case, I did think it would be worthwhile to put some thoughts down on a recorded episode, so people could have a better understanding of what this means. And I've done several blog posts over the years. Actually, every time the Sifu test comes up, I try to do the pen to paper thing and share some thoughts, some ideas, some of my reflections on the process. And it's kind of came to me because I was welcoming a new student the other day to our school, which consists of someone comes in to watch a class at the Wah Lum Temple. Then they say, I think this is for me. I want to sign up. However, before that can happen, you have to fill out an extensive application process to see if we are a good fit. This is actually something that's fairly new. I mean, we usually do kind of an interview process and ensure that expectations are being met, but we have found that students don't read application forms. They just sign. It's kind of like when you go rock climbing or skydiving and they say, well, if you want to do this, sign the waiver. And you're like, I'm all in, let's do it. So we found that even though there was like a regular application process where someone signs up and we go over all the rules and the protocol and our expectations, somehow on sign up day, they just don't care. But like, say 2 months later or 6 months later or 6 years later or a week later, suddenly they never remembered that rule and they were not told that this was the policy. And so now, in order to prevent that, what we do is we actually don't have people sign up right away. We say, you know what, take a breath, take a breather, think about it. Please go online. Here's our application process, kind of like a college or a Wah Lum Institute, of learning, where we want to make sure you understand you are coming into a traditional environment. We want to make sure that you know what the Wah Lum Temple stands for, what it's about, what you're getting into. And also, we want serious students. We want students who are dedicated to their practice, but also we have an understanding that there's no expectation on our side that you're going to be this diehard, Shaolin monk student that comes and lives there and doesn't ever leave. But we do really want students who have the mindset that is complementary to our traditional mindset. So we have all these questions, we have all of these things that we ask the students prior to being a member to agree upon and ensure that they understand, because I feel like usually a lack of communication happens when expectations aren't set. And so we are trying to be better about setting expectations. And so after this process, there is kind of a committee of a few of us that review the application. We speak to our admin team and say, hey, did you get a good feel? Do you think this person is a good fit? And oftentimes it could even be like one of our little mantises who are maybe a little too young and they weren't able to sit and watch the whole class. So we decide not for them yet. So we do have a process where we actually will tell people like, this is not a good fit for you. And so back to that first day student, I was welcoming a new student the other day, and having known they'd gone through this extensive process to become a member, then what happens is they have their first day at Kung Fu, in which they show up to the temple early before class, 10 to 15 minutes, with their uniform on, with their sash in hand and their Wah Lum handbook, and their instructor assigned for the day will take them through what we call like day one basics and basically teach them their ABCs of Wah Lum, have you. After that, I usually introduce myself, I welcome them to the school, and I pretty much try to track their Wah Lum journey at that point. And in all honesty, I usually don't have initial like teaching contact with that student until maybe a couple years in when they make it to the advanced class. We have a really amazing team of instructors that really takes them on their journey up through that point. A lot of times I'll see them at testing, but for the most part, I'm kind of the big picture person where I'm looking above and trying to ensure all the students are getting the best possible instruction. In order to do that, I cannot be there doing day one students and doing all of the beginner classes. And so that's kind of how the structure of our school works. For those of you who are ever curious about what does it take to be a Wah Lum Temple student and member, and so that's kind of what your first week looks like, where you sign up to be a member at our school and then you get going. And so when I was thinking about this, I was trying to remember my first day as a Wah Lum Kung Fu student, which of course I can't remember because honestly, my memory is just always being in Kung Fu class and in Kung Fu clothes, probably being in Kung Fu clothes more than regular clothes. As you can see, for those of you who, if I show this video, I am still wearing Kung Fu clothes. I'm in my Wah Lum brand shirt. Oscar and I always say, hey, on brand. We go through the airports and we're always wearing our hoodies and our sweatpants, and it's always our Wah Lum logo. So we just like to say that we're always on brand, and it's kind of funny, but we basically just find our clothes comfortable. And also that's kind of all the clothes we kind of have, except for those of you who saw my fabulous new Africa gear. Like obviously I have that, but I can't just wear that everywhere. In any case, I was thinking about what was my first day like? Because it wasn't a typical welcome to your first day of Wah Lum Kung Fu kind of thing. My mom always tells a story where apparently I was like a baby and my dad was taking me and stretching me into a full split, which as a baby you can already do. And she just told me that she didn't really like it, but that he was pretty insistent to make sure that I didn't lose my splits. And now I'm kind of sad in my 40s that he's not still doing that because, of course, it takes quite a bit for me to even get close to perfect splits. It takes a lot longer to warm up. So clearly he had the right idea. But I do recall always being a Kung Fu student. And one of the things that we tell the Sifus or the instructors or students when they come in for the Sifu Test weekend is that you're walking in the doors as a student first. As a Sifu, we always have to remember we are students first. And in my mind, I'm still that 2 or 3-year-old doing Kung Fu and trying to keep up with my splits and trying to catch up with my learning. And so in my mind, I feel like I always kind of have this concept of being a student first because every single thing I do, I feel like I'm just learning, constantly learning and trying to keep up with my learning. So we ask the Sifus when they come here to empty their cups, to empty their brains, to realize this is a gift we're giving you, which is you get to be a student again. Because while people think, wow, being the master is the best because you are the decision maker, you have all the quote unquote power, you get to make all the rules and nobody questions you and all of these things. I guess it's kind of like being a parent or the teacher in the room. And sometimes it's not the most desirable position. You just want to switch off your brain and be able to go on autopilot and just kind of enjoy life. And as the one in charge, that's not necessarily the case, especially for Wah Lum Sifus who own their own schools. You are responsible for every facet that happens, everything that goes on at your school. So we love to tell our instructors when they come here, guess what? Here's our gift to you. You are a student again. You get to come to just learn and train and be a part of something, and to take off your teacher hat, except for the part where you're taking notes on, oh, when I go to teach, I should do these things. But like essentially you get to just kind of be there and be present and be able to kind of absorb and enjoy being a student. And there is a great amount of joy to that. And I know that it's always the grass is greener. Like when I'm a student, oh, I want to be the most advanced, or I want to be the teacher, I want to be the master. And I will tell you, it is truly a gift to be the student again. So we empty our brains or our cups, have not physically, but we empty it and say like, hey, we're ready to learn, and we're here to be flexible and understand and learn. And it's such a cool thing to have 20 plus people in a room that get you, that know your lifestyle, that understand your passion and what you do. And I'm sure elite sports teams feel this way, like an NBA, pregame locker room chat. Like they're the only ones who knows what that energy is like right before they take to the court, or, an NFL team right before they take the field. Like I could guess what it feels like to go onto the field with all of these elite athletes, or being an Olympian or something. And by no means am I saying us Wah Lum Sifus are Olympians or elite athletes, but we are very, very dedicated to what we do. We've dedicated our whole lives for the most part. When we were talking to the instructors about, hey, how long have you been here? Everyone there was pretty much at least two decades of their lives or more have been spent there. And the ones that were there for, say, 20 years said, wow, normally I would be the beginner in the room, but in this room, I'm the novice. I'm a neophyte, because we have people that were there 40 plus years, right? Not just me who's born into it, but there were some of my older Kung Fu brothers that have been in Wah Lum longer than I've been born. They were around when I was born. So this is a really deep level of dedication. And to be in a room with like-minded humans that have all had passion and perseverance towards an art form and a martial art that has made them better people, it's a rare feeling. So that's how the weekend starts. You normally, you just start off going, hey, we're students again, and we're all here to learn together. And that alone, that energy is contagious, exciting, and it really carries over. Now, this year was very different because we didn't get to all just show up and have our welcome meeting. This year, Hurricane Milton had other things in store for us. And what happened was our test was supposed to start on Thursday afternoon. The hurricane hit on Wednesday, as you all probably by now know if you're looking at that week of, October 10, October 9. And so my instructors, my team, my family were trying to get into Orlando anywhere from Tuesday before the hurricane all the way through Saturday after the hurricane. Flights were canceled. Flights were rescheduled. Flights were consistently being canceled and rescheduled. And I mean by the hour. So what turned into what was supposed to be, hey, everyone's here Thursday or Friday morning, and we have our welcome meeting and we have our conversation. Yay, go, let's do this. It ended up being chaos, complete and utter chaos, a logistical nightmare that I had to constantly adjust every single hour of the day up until Saturday afternoon, when finally every single member made it in. And every member that had planned to be there was there, from Germany, from New England, from Tennessee, from Portland, from Texas. And these were flights, right? These were inconvenient flights that people had to take, connecting flights with long layovers, all hours of the evening. My Germany student, Torsten, he had to fly from Germany over to San Francisco and then loop back to Orlando on a red eye. So he literally flew past Florida through the hurricane and then flew back over once the hurricane had passed. We had people driving into town and waiting for the hurricane to leave. We had people flying in before the hurricane to sit in the hurricane with us while everybody else is evacuating and leaving Florida. We had people coming towards Florida. That is the power of Wah Lum. That is the power of love. That is the power of a true family, where they did everything possible to get here for this weekend. And it is remarkable. And I am overwhelmed by it. And so it was already a very emotionally charged weekend, knowing, wow, everyone's getting here. And it wasn't just to take the test. Yes, it was a Sifu test, but it was also my father, Grandmaster Chan's birthday. We're celebrating his 86th birthday, and everyone wanted to be there for it. And the fact that people went above and beyond, literally flew around the world to get here, means so, so much. And so if any of you are listening and you know who you are, thank you so much. It was so meaningful to every time someone landed, and we would get that text message in our group chat, like, landed. It was like a huge celebration. And the nightmare of the logistics were really, they were real. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't sleep for like 4 or 5 days, and neither did Oscar. We were up every single night prepping for the next day for contingencies of what every hour would look like depending if people came in. We had, at least 50 hours of Kung Fu to review and get through, and how are we going to get everything on the schedule. In addition, we had philosophy lectures and history lectures. We had business meetings to conduct so that we could help our schools thrive. We had brainstorm workshop sessions, so many things planned, and we actually were able to get most everything in, which is completely insane. So this is how the weekend started. It was supposed to be one thing, and it ended up being something completely different, yet the same, but I would say even better, because it's kind of like we went through this chaos challenge together and we succeeded. And it was absolutely insane. And so, as a lifelong student of Wah Lum, I will say there has never been another test like this. We've had storms, we've had disruptive flights, but never in a way of which, leading up to a hurricane, people flying in pre-hurricane, and then post-storm, just the temple surviving. When myself and Oscar went to the temple that next morning, we made sure the roads were clear. We got the clearance that everything was fine, that emergency dispatches has already been doing their thing. We weren't going to be a hindrance. Sifu's Bob and Leroy were with us, and so they had come in pre-storm to hang out during the hurricane with us. And we got to the temple, and every time I pull up to the temple right after a hurricane, because this is not the first hurricane, we've had so many, I get this knot in my stomach, but I also have like this sense of like it's all going to be okay. Like there's this like conflictive force that's pushing against each other. Like it's like on one hand I feel and know it's fine. On the other hand, I have my anxiety of, oh no. In this case, I did check the security cameras and I did see that we didn't even lose power. So that was already the first good sign. And so I was able to kind of see the premise, and I said, wow, it's not as flooded as we've seen it before. So that's already a good sign. But I couldn't tell if there was damage because all the different angles, it really didn't show too much, but I could see the temple. So I already this time kind of knew. But pulling up to the gate, seeing the gate open, and then just like pulling into the temple and then just seeing it still standing is this just huge weight and relief that just flushes over me. And it's super just a sigh of relief. And so we got there, and Bob and Oscar and Leroy they were cleaning the premise, and I was just like trying to print stuff out because of course I didn't have power at home. And it was crazy, but it was so exciting because we were basically preparing the school, we're preparing the temple for the arrival of all these instructors from around the world that were going to come to test in Florida together after this crazy hurricane, during this crazy hurricane. And it was just so amazing to be able to share like kind of that pre-storm, oh my goodness, sit through the storm with family, and then post-storm, all right, it's going to be okay. Let's do this. And then just hit the ground running. So people are always wondering, like, what does it mean to take a Sifu test, and how does that work? And so after that first day where you show up at Wah Lum and you become a student, maybe about 20 years later, if you've done everything you're supposed to do in terms of being a good student, showing up for your school, being involved, showing up to all the group events, and being just kind of a leader, assisting in kung fu classes, you end up being an assistant instructor after, maybe 6 to 10 years, depends on who you are and which school you're at and how often you're there. But after all of that, then maybe there's a window that opens in it, and that window says, hey, is this a path you want to take? Do you want to take the next step in being part of the Wah Lum family as a Wah Lum Sifu, which means you are kind of pledging to proliferate the art and to help preserve it and to be part of a lineage and a legacy that has been ongoing for decades, if not centuries at this point, right? And so it's a really deep undertaking, and we take it really seriously. So Sifus have to write a letter of intent. Even if they were a Sifu previously, they still need to write a letter of intent stating why they want to do this. What is their motivation, and what is the reason they feel like they should be on this journey, and then they should take this test, because the test is very, very involved and takes a lot of time and energy. So once all of those things add up, your 2 decades of training, and then you're proving that you want to do this, then you sign up. And if there's not a hurricane, you just fly to Orlando when the test weekend happens, like a normal scheduled event, and you show up for testing. And then people are always like, well, what's at the test? What do you guys have to do? Do you have to jump through flames of hoops of fire? Do you have to like dodge knives being thrown at you? And I will say, back in the day, there were some really crazy, difficult physical feats. Not that this isn't physical, but there was some, Grandmaster Chan's like, oh, I can do these Tom Twees up and down on this little paper cup, so you should be able to do it on this little, small wooden block. And, there were some pretty crazy challenges out there. But now we basically have a standard where we just want to see all of the material that Wah Lum instructors teach, that schools teach. So we go through the entire curriculum, which is insanely huge, right? The standard curriculum is a ridiculous amount of forms and weaponry. And then the additional advanced curriculum is equally as large as that. So the depth of it, we don't get through the entire weekend. We really just get through the core. And what is involved is basically the senior panel, which is myself and my 3 Kung Fu brothers. And we basically test everybody and check their material. And we basically see, like, is everybody teaching to the standard of Wah Lum? Because what my dad, Grandmaster Chan, has envisioned is ensuring that this art form that was started by his grandmaster, and that it is preserved in a way that is authentic and that is standardized so that it can be proliferated. Because if you're a musician, you understand, like, there are scales, and then there are jazz riffs, and then there is improvisation on that, and then there is, different concertos and compositions that are super, super entailed. And a master musician can take that and then make it something different, right? But what we want to do is preserve those compositions and works of art. And so our forms are like these compositions, and we want to make sure that they're preserved while still understanding how to apply them in different circumstances, while still understanding the martial arts application and how to use all these different weapons and how to do performance and how to do lion and dragon and fight sets and tournaments and so on and so on. So there's so many layers, but at the core of it, we want to ensure that the tradition and that the curriculum is standard and is the same across all Wah Lum schools, so that if any of my students walk into their family school, they can fit in, do class, and pretty much have a similar Wah Lum experience, except with, the flavor of whatever that Sifu kind of brings to it. Of course, as a teacher, we all bring different attributes and we all bring different spirits, but the core is the same. And so we basically qualify and test all of these standards to ensure we're all doing things the same. So it's very, very physical. It's hours and hours and hours of kung fu. And then once we kind of see where we're at, we will do workshop review. We'll sit down and break things down, and we'll go over things physically. In addition, we like to make sure that students know Wah Lum is a traditional kung fu system. It's a traditional Chinese martial art. And so it's not just kicking and punching. There is history, there is philosophy, there is etiquette ingrained in the Chinese culture. And we like for everything to be learned. This is a fully well-rounded system that isn't just about fighting or isn't just about weapons or performance or anything. We want everyone to be well-rounded. So we do teach our instructors and our students to count and do commands in Chinese. We want to be able to preserve all of the things we find essential and important in our style. And so we go through all of those things and we sit together and we have brainstorming and conversations. And one of the sessions that we sat down with was really fun because I've done this with my temple team where we actually started to watch Pui Chan Kung Fu Pioneer. And instead of watching it and just sitting and enjoying the film, which we did, but what we did was we also stopped and started and just kind of talked about some of the behind the scenes and some of the thoughts that came to our mind when we would see an image on screen, and we would kind of go down the rabbit hole, the Wah Lum Sifu rabbit hole on, wait, tell me about this part. What did it mean when he jumped off the ship? Or what did it mean when he was in his village and the elders were doing exercises and he would watch? Was that okay? Was that not okay? And so we would be able to kind of just have these philosophical conversations in addition to the historical lessons. So it was such an enriching weekend. And I want to say it was also an emotional weekend. It was super, super emotionally charged. How it started with Milton, the hurricane coming in, and everybody just overpowering it with love and chi and just all the energy of the Sifu energy, like it just defeating that negativity and basically that roadblock to get here, and people going, no, we're not going to let this stop us. We're still going to be here. And then celebrating my father's birthday, the fact that we still have him here to be able to oversee everything, and he can watch some of the testing and decide if he wants to give them the, let them live, let them die, like I like it or I don't like it. He did sit in and watch a lot of the testing. He watched my testing with my Kung Fu brothers and Oscar, and that was really exciting because he stayed the whole time. He watched all of our forms, and so he stayed for several hours. And while it is very taxing for him to have to sit there and watch and absorb, he still really enjoys it because he's super proud. He's super proud to see that these forms are being preserved. So throughout the weekend, it was just super, super intense. And I feel like it was chaotic and it was really jam-packed. And I'm hoping that the people who were there have had a moment to breathe. I've sort of had a moment to breathe. I honestly have to just kind of disconnect and leave Orlando in order to do that, which I will be doing in a few weeks, to just kind of let my brain stop from running 100 miles an hour. But there's still a lot of things to do post-test. So everybody was there. They were working hard together. To see that level of dedication and the advanced level of Wah Lum practitioners kind of working together in an environment where they basically felt they were back as students and even as beginner students. Like, I'm going to come in and you're going to tell me the most fundamental things that need fixing. And they were able to be humble and take that with gratitude is truly remarkable. Because once you're kind of the tiger on the mountain, it's hard for you to not be the tiger on the mountain everywhere you go. And so it's truly amazing that the Wah Lum philosophy that we say every day during our Kung Fu classes, which is in our martial art altar, that respect and kindness and hard work and the control and learning humility and all of those things, those lessons that we say it over and over, that it actually is still, that it is actually being put into action, even by people who've been doing this forever and certainly have a right to say, well, why should we do something this way? And the fact that they were so open to learning was very encouraging and inspiring. And that's what makes me excited to continue learning. And so, going over all of these different things is certainly exhaustive, but it's also very rewarding. And the biggest part about this is the family reunion element. So on one hand, yes, they're there for a test. They're there to qualify. They're there to ensure that Wah Lum doors should stay open because it's operating as a Wah Lum school should, with all the right teachings. But really, it's about the family, and it's about everybody being together physically and going through this rigorous assessment, but as a unit, as a family. So it's like we're going through something together. And literally with this hurricane, it felt even more so that we were all in this together and that we were all pushing against this metaphoric and literal storm in order to preserve a system. And the fact that they're so committed to continual testing despite the challenges, despite how difficult it is, despite that every year we all get older and our bodies get more tired, and regardless of how old people are, the fact that they still believe in the process is really exciting and inspiring, because that means our future generations are only going to be more knowledgeable and have more access to all of the research that we have done. So the standard is very high, and it is very difficult to preserve such a rich system. But it's exciting that this group that has come in this year has shown the love for Wah Lum that they have, and that makes me have a sigh of relief. We've been talking a lot about politics and the election and other podcasts, and having this sigh of relief is a hope. And I'm always a little bit leery about being hopeful, but it is a sigh of relief thinking about the future of Wah Lum, whether I'm here or not, or whatever's going to happen. It's really exciting to see. So I took the time to kind of share a window of what the Sifu test is like and what it means to be a part of it, and how much work goes into it, from not just my side, but especially from the student side, from them having to get ready for these tests and then having to leave their homes and fight a hurricane and be here and do this physical feat, as well as mental and emotional, and just a really intense weekend. There are people out there that criticize and don't understand why we have to have this testing, or why we put senior instructors who've been in the system for 30 years through this. And I will tell you that they're the first ones to say, well, we need to keep doing this because we need to keep holding ourselves accountable. I'm so inspired by my Sihing, Bob Rosen, who, has some physical limitations as age and previous injuries have caught up, but every year says, I want to do the test. If I'm still standing, I want to still be able to go through and push myself to my limit, because I need to prove to not just myself, but also to be a good leader and to lead by example. And that is something that's always going to stick with me. So if I get up and my neck's a little tweaked or this or that, I have no excuses, because there are people that are almost twice my age that have been pushing and doing this much longer and continue to. And so those people who criticize that this is something that's negative, it's because they don't know. They don't know, and they likely have never gone through anything like this. And if they have, that's fine. Everybody has the right to their own opinion. But the frustrating part for us is when people talk about things they don't know about, right? And I could share all these stories with you and talk to you about what it's like to be in the room when we're all testing and then everyone's cheering or everybody's sweating together and everybody's doing a form or just 3 moves of a form, and we're doing it in repetition over and over, and the energy in that room is so intense. And I could explain this. I'm not really a great writer or descriptor of things, so I'm sure you're not even getting the sense of it. And you could even watch it on video, which you never will, and you still won't understand because you're not in the room. You don't get it. And all I can say is that for those that outside looking in feel like this isn't something that is a positive thing, it's not even worth explaining to you, to be honest. And in one other way that I think is essential to kind of point out is there are people who teach Wah Lum without permission, and maybe at one time was certified in like 1984, or maybe didn't even certify and got to, their 3rd year of Wah Lum, but decided they think they're really great at it and will become their own self-proclaimed master by, XYZ name Kung Fu now. Like, I'm going to be Mimi Chan Kung Fu. That's kind of what their formula is. Like, take my name and then put Kung Fu after it, and then that's my school. And, no offense to people who do have their schools named after them. I think that's fine. But I don't think it's okay when you are basically stealing a style that has not been gifted to you, nor have you earned. And in the Wah Lum system, I'm telling you now, this is how it's earned. It's earned by showing up every 3 years and pushing together and being part of a family and continuing that research and continuing to keep a standard and a tradition alive. And so those people out there who teach and then just change the name but do exactly our forms because they know it's not legal to use our name, I have no respect. I have no respect for them as humans because it's something that I've been taught is wrong and that I know that I couldn't do, right? I would never presume to pass something off as my own knowledge or something that I own that hasn't been earned or I haven't given permission to utilize, especially when it comes to something so rich and essential as Chinese martial arts that has a history, a deep history and lineage like Wah Lum does and what Grandmaster Chan has done and the sacrifices he has had to make to bring us this art form and to preserve the art form and to continuously proliferate and teach it. It was not easy for him to make it from Shajiang, China to Lafosan, Hong Kong, right? A lot of people died. If you watch the documentary, you'll hear people who took those boats and tried to come over died. Then he took another boat and then he had to swim ashore to America and then survive in America, a land where he did not speak English or write English or know anything about this country and be able to survive. And then to open the doors for all to learn. Like, there were a lot of sacrifices that have been made in order to preserve and continue this style. And for those that disrespect that, you know who you are. And I feel sorry for the students that follow them blindly and don't know this. And so if you want to study real Wah Lum Kung Fu, I will urge you to look at our website, look at those names on that website, because they have not only earned their name on that website, but they are a group of humans who are honorable, who have fought through a hurricane to get here and to continue a tradition, and who are part of the Wah Lum family. More than anything, this is a family system, and only family members are given permission to continue teaching and have gone through the rigorous testing and training and dedication and Kung Fu meaning hard work, have done the hard work to do so. So I urge you students who think they've learned part of Wah Lum or think it's fine to just learn something that was watched off a video or maybe had been, taught to somebody back in the day. I know you don't really know any better, but just remember this is part of a lineage. It's part of a family, and there has to be a respect, and there has to be decorum, and there has to be a way for you to find and truly learn from people who deserve to be teaching it. Because honestly, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be teaching this system, and I am privileged. I am so grateful to have been given this opportunity, but I've also worked really hard in order to continue that tradition. And so I urge you to definitely check out our website, look at the names of the schools, and if yours isn't there, but you're learning Wah Lum, then you're not really learning Wah Lum. So that is all I'll say about that. Our test weekend was phenomenal, and I just want to send out all of my gratitude to everybody who showed up, made it happen, especially my Kung Fu brothers who sat there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, 12 plus hours a day, watching Kung Fu, helping me with the correctives and carrying on this legacy. And a special shout out to my favorite human in the world, Oscar, who I could not have done any of this without. He did not sleep for several days as well. We just had to troubleshoot the entire weekend, and it was insanity. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I will kind of close out with just thoughts on kind of the evolution of this, right? So as people ask me about the Wah Lum system and what does it mean to be a Sifu and how does that work, and how while this is traditional, while we've been maintaining this standard and keeping something going that my father brought over and that he's been just started this testing, decades ago, it has evolved. It has become more organized. It has definitely become more structured. And just me talking to you here about being a Kung Fu Sifu, while of course my father had always opened the door to all ethnicities and races and sexes to learn, I don't know that there were, even back at the time in the 60s, 70s, that many Kung Fu female Sifus. And he didn't think anything of it. He kind of just thought, well, if you're qualified, you work hard and you do well, then you can certify and you can take that next step. And so in the Wah Lum system, we have so many female Sifus, and the woman empowerment is mad strong, and I'm super proud to be a part of that, and just the evolution of women in martial arts in general. But the fact that we as female martial art practitioners even exist decades ago even would not have been a possibility. So it's very exciting that while we can maintain tradition, while we can continue having an authentic traditional system, we at the same time can evolve with modern times and be able to maintain all of the essentials while also doing away with things that are archaic, like women should not be taught kung fu. And I think it's super progressive of my father to be able to envision that and to be able to know that that wasn't even a consideration, or it had never even crossed his mind as something that couldn't be. And so I'm super grateful that my father was so open-minded and that he had my mom to kind of be a cornerstone in this, and so that he knew he was in a partnership. And so it's really exciting to just kind of be in a time where this was possible. Like if I was born 100 years ago, then I would just be, bringing tea to the Kung Fu elders and, maybe trying to secretly learn from the outside looking in. But we're not 100 years ago, we're now. And so we can preserve the great things from 100 years ago while living in a modern time. And that's a real rarity as well, because there's always this struggle of the word tradition even being negative, right? Like, oh, we're holding on to archaic ideas and thoughts. But I do think tradition is necessary in a lot of settings, and this is certainly one of them. Finally, I will say that part of the Sifu journey is setting personal goals and future goals, not just, okay, for my Wah Lum Kung Fu school, here's what I want. So one of the things that was great was being able to sit down with some of the instructors and just kind of hear their journey and their challenges, whether it be physical, whether it be financial because of where they're at, they're having a hard time getting Kung Fu students, whether the challenge is even cultural, right? Trying to understand more about the Chinese culture and being able to teach that. The challenges are there, but the personal growth of what am I going to do with this? And what am I going to do to challenge myself? And how am I going to improve as a martial artist? And being able to be a student allows you then to set goals for yourself as a student, as a martial artist, as a personal journey, to be able to kind of say, hey, I have my own personal goals in addition to carrying on the weight of making sure my students are all learning properly and being able to proliferate Wah Lum Kung Fu. So just having kind of personal limits being pushed and setting my own goals, as well as seeing the students set their own goals, is really exciting. And one of the things through the weekend that is always inspiring is, watching my dad, watching Grandmaster Chan walk around, seeing everybody wield double broadswords and having him just shake his head. And these people are expert double broadsword users compared to some new person that just has never even used them before, and him just going, yeah, no, that's not quite right, I'm going to show you what's up. And for him to just be able to have such an expert eye for finite details that the average person would look at these, what we call double broadsword flowers, right? And it's just like seeing this beautiful wielding of this weaponry that is graceful yet powerful. And for him to be able to just see like 5 seconds of it and be able to know, yeah, they don't really quite have it 100% could be very, it could be very frustrating for a practitioner. But if you're a true practitioner, then you should actually be excited, because it just means you have so much more to learn, and being able to continuously learn is a gift. And seeing my dad be so engaged over the weekend and be so excited about seeing kung fu in the temple and seeing movement and life was so rewarding. And of course, everyone being there for his birthday and celebrating his birthday with him. We got the big roast pig. We did the incense lighting. The Kung Fu students, my demo team, they came in and did a really great lion dance for him to bring him good luck and good health and all the wishes, and just having all of those traditional aspects come together in a joyous celebration during what could have been a really depressing weekend where no one showed up because of the hurricane, or all the flights were canceled and we had to reschedule. It was just truly an incredible weekend, and I just wanted to be able to share a slice of it with you. Thank you for listening to my rambling. For those of you who are interested, I did post the lion dance on my Patreon page, so only my patrons get to see it. But if you're not interested in like supporting me consistently, that's okay. No offense. I'll take any bit of love I can get. I have put a lot of the posts up where you can just do a one-time donation. So you can just donate if you're interested in just to see the lion video, or just reading about this post or that post. So I do have my Patreon page set up to where you can kind of pick and choose your own adventure, or, maybe get a sample of it for like $5 and just donate to the cause, and then decide if it's worthy of a continuous subscription. But no obligation. However, I do want to take this moment not to just thank, my Wah Lum family, but to thank my patron family, because you guys honestly is what keeps me recording, keeps me putting out content, and allows me to continuously push myself creatively and write new content, and to make sure that this history is also captured, because it's equally as important. So thank you so much to all of my patrons. You know who you are. I wish I was a little more prepared. I could read you the full list of names, but maybe I'll put it in a post. So thank you all so much. You are my inspiration to keep going with this podcast. And for those of you who are listening for the first time, normally I have a special guest, or at least a Me Oscar episode where Oscar and I banter and we go back and forth and rant about something. But this is a one-off episode for today. So hopefully you guys all hung out with me and enjoyed it. And I appreciate you. Until next time. Bye.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram or Facebook.